We have to beat Donald Trump as the overwhelming imperative we have. And folks, we have to begin to rebuild the backbone of this nation. Hard-working people, middle-class people. Ladies and gentlemen, Wall Street did not build America. You build America. Average people given a chance build America. And right now, the poor are getting poorer, and from the bottom are falling out of the middle class. Income inequity is at an all-time high, and made worse by Trump's tax cuts and enormous giveaways to the top 0.1%, let alone 1%. And it's time we start to reward work over wealth. We need big and bold ideas. And folks, on day one, I will move to eliminate Trump's tax cuts as well for the super wealthy, and literally cut by close to $400 to $500 billion the tax loopholes built in that have no social redeeming value, and put that money to good use. Health care. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to save and build upon the Affordable Care Act, not jettison it. 20 million people are covered that weren't before. Over 130 million people with pre-existing conditions. And I'm proud. I was proud every day to serve with Barack, but let me tell you, never prouder than the day that he got done what no other president was able to do. And folks, we have to finish the job. Under my plan, whether you're covered by your employer on your own or not at all, you will be able to buy into an option, a public health care option like Medicare, and you'll be able to have it, and if you don't have the money, you'll automatically be enrolled in that. We have guaranteed that the poor, we have to guarantee that the poor are in fact covered, because they can be, and it's within our interest, and will save billions of dollars. Ladies and gentlemen, education. 12 years is no longer enough for the 21st century of education. And folks, that's why I want to triple Title I funding for schools in distress. And by the way, we can afford to do this. It moves from 15 to $45 billion. We need universal pre-K. We need to raise teachers' pay. We have to fully fund special education. And we have to double the number of school psychologists, guidance counselors, nurses, because teachers can't do it all on their own. And folks, we can easily afford free community college, cutting in half the cost of four-year colleges for everyone qualified to get in. And further than that, we have to do something and reduce the student debt, which I don't have time to go into now, but we will. Child care. I know what it's like to be a single parent. I was one for 5 years and I had a lot of help. I can't imagine what it's like for people who don't have the kind of help I had with my family. And I think we should provide an $8,000 tax credit for every single person who has a child and needs child care. Ladies and gentlemen, climate change. We have to restore what Brock and I did in terms of fuel economy and doubling fuel economy, as well as dealing with coal-fired plants. We can double offshore. My plan calls for doubling offshore wind energy by 2030, providing $400 billion in the next 10 years for clean energy research and innovation, more than twice as much as we spent to going to the moon. Ladies and gentlemen, we also have to immediately hold polluters accountable. You saw the headline in today's paper, in your paper. It says, South Carolina, $2 billion problem, pipes like tissue paper, threatening public health. It is unacceptable that occurs. We can afford it. And it's not just in South Carolina, it's around America. Criminal justice reform. There are too many people in prison, too many black men, and I might add, black women in prison. And look, in our administration, we started to address the problem. Our reforms helped reduce federal prisons by 38,000 people came out. And then we passed the supportive school discipline initiative to break the school-to-prison pipeline. But we need to pass Congressman Bobby Scott from Virginia's Safe Justice Act. But I met with him. We got to add a few things that I've been proposing. No more mandatory minimums, period. End private prisons, which we did in our bill, period. Fund my drug courts to about $1 billion a year. No one should be going to jail because they are addicted. They should be going into rehabilitation, not to jail. Bail reform. Just because you don't have the money shouldn't mean you can be languish in jail. Ladies and gentlemen, no juvenile and adult prisons. Mandatory treatment in jail for people who also suffer from addiction. Ladies and gentlemen, decriminalize marijuana and automatically expunge records for those who have been convicted. And by the way, instead of teaching people how to be better criminals in prison, we should be educating people in prison. It's in our interest to do so. Automatic restoration of rights once your sentence is served, meaning not only you can vote, but you're qualified for every program, including Pell Grants, to go on and get your education. It makes no sense. Look, folks, we have to unite this country. We have to unite it. That's why the only way we're going to be able to harness this. Look, we're on the cusp of major, major changes in cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, so much more. We can do this by doubling NIH's budget, which is totally within our reach, and set up a new project I propose, like what happened in the Defense Department, to find how to come up with the whole internet. Provide billions of dollars for basic research. I call it ARPA-H, meaning healthcare. Focus on research and take all the technology we have to focus on solving problems which are within our reach, like the Biden Cancer Initiative and the moonshot. Look, I beat the NRA before. We ought to ban assault weapons again, which I did, limit magazines. And by the way, use technology so you cannot fire a gun unless it has your biometric prints on it. And that means no problem in terms of the Second Amendment, and you have to pass the background checks, which I put in law as a consequence of the Brady Amendment. Everybody. Folks, science and technology can fundamentally reshape our lives. I've never been more optimistic about this country. We ought to pick our heads up. I remember the phrase from John Kennedy who wanted to go to the moon. He said, because we are unwilling to postpone. I am unwilling to postpone any longer the potential of this nation. It's totally within our power to change it. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, again, live right now in South Carolina at the State Democratic Party Convention. Back with us to discuss, Joel Payne and Ron Brownstein. First, I want to hear from you, Joel. What did you think of what you just heard?
That was a lot in a speech. And you know what? Just looking at that compared to the Booker speech that we heard just before that, Booker's speech was much more of a value speech. It was about what his principles are. That was a laundry list speech that really any Democrat could have given over the last half century about Democratic Party values, rather Democratic Party priorities. And so I think it's interesting how the two campaigns decided to approach in different ways. Also, it's apparent to me that Booker's point is the problems of the nation did not start with Donald Trump. That's a foundational point that Cory Booker and a lot of Democrats have talked about, is that reducing this to a Donald Trump-only election minimizes what Democrats can do on Election Day. Joe Biden is telling you, if we allow Donald Trump another 4 years, that's more than an aberration. That is an irreversible mark on the country. Biden is kind of standing on one side of history, saying, I'm focused on getting rid of Donald Trump. The other Democrats are saying, yeah, Donald Trump's a problem, but there were a lot of problems that existed way before Donald Trump. That's a really, really fascinating construction in terms of how some Democrats are looking at the problems versus others.
What did you think, Ron?
Well, it was kind of the stump speech, sped up to 2 times to fit it all, 2 times speed to fit it all. And I agree with Joel that the stump speech, sped up to 2 times. The stump speech, sped up to 2 times.